Welcome food fans, picky eaters, the flavor curious, and everyone in between. Nothing makes good food better than good conversation. And your table is ready. Come right this way to the Food for Thoughtcast with your host, Melissa Reagan. But you can call her Chef. All right, let's get this episode started.
Hi, and welcome to the Food for Thoughtcast. My name is Melissa, but you can call me Chef. In today's episode, I'm joined by Kennedy Bauer, the Network Engagement Services Manager of the North Texas Food Bank. She is passionate and dedicated to serving her neighbors in a unique way. You might be asking yourself, what does this episode and today's guest have to do with the culinary world? It's not a food influencer, another chef, a restaurant owner, a baker, a blogger, or free recipes. So what's going on? Well, food brings people together in extraordinary ways. And likewise, a lack of food should also mobilize us to take appropriate action. This isn't a ploy to get your money or a guilt trip by any means, but a delightful conversation to help understand the nonprofit side of the food and beverage industry and how we can help one another through food. It's some serious food for thought. I'll see you on the other side. We'll be right back. As a chef and a person who loves all kinds of food, I'm always looking for ways that I can emphasize quality over quantity without feeling like I'm missing out or depriving myself of the things that I love. And I love pasta. Carbonara, mac and cheese, primavera, cacio e pepe, you name it, and I'm all about it. That's why I choose Bonza. Bonza is the pasta made from chickpeas, which means it has more protein, more fiber, and I believe more flavor. Seriously, if you go in my pantry right now, there are 2 boxes in there awaiting their next culinary adventure. Bonza has over 12 different kinds of pasta, including penne, rotini, elbow macaroni, and cavatappi, which is my favorite, because all of those curves and ridges hold even more delicious sauce. Bonza also makes pizza crust, which tastes too good to believe it comes from peas. You can find Bonza at Whole Foods, Target, and Walmart. Now back to the show. Good morning, Kennedy. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Always happy to talk about the food bank.
All right. Well, just want to get started. Tell me how you came to be involved with the North Texas Food Bank.
Yeah. Well, I've known the food bank for my entire life. I grew up in Dallas. The food bank has always been kind of the backbone of the fight against hunger. And so I've known about them forever. I've volunteered with them several times and just recently started looking at additional opportunities. Nonprofits have always been a piece of my heart, and I've worked with them in the past. And so it just kind of fell into place. I found the perfect job.
That's amazing. Isn't that the most amazing feeling when you find where you feel like you belong?
It really is. And I wasn't entirely sure. I mean, I knew that the job was going to be perfect for me because I read the description, and after my interviews and all of that, I knew. Once I started working at the food bank, like the passion that everyone here has for the mission is just speaks volumes to the amount of work that they can do in the community. Like, it's incredible.
So what does a typical day in the life look like at the North Texas Food Bank?
Oh gosh. Well, it really depends on who you are. The food bank does a lot and really recently has started doing even more. I know we got a lot of publicity over COVID here and greater since then. So a couple of like quick facts, $1 equals 3 meals at the food bank. So anyone who donates $1 is already donating 3 meals to someone in need.
That's amazing.
In the last year, thank you. Yeah, it's incredible we've gotten to that number. But in the last year, we distributed over 137 million meals. So 137 million meals. Over the last 5 years, that number has doubled. So 5 years ago, we were about 70 million in a year. And now we're almost double that, which is insane. I think if you're looking at the current economy and, inflation, we've also seen just like significant jumps in grocery store prices. And so
Right.
like the cost of any healthy food is just skyrocketing. Like it's
And,
almost
well,
10 to 15% more than it was last year.
right. I mean, eggs and chicken for starters, that's not even
Yeah.
inflation related, right? Just avian flu related. And then because of inflation, grains, wheat, anything you could think of, right? Corn.
And any produce like lettuce is
Mhm.
almost 10% more than it has been in the past few months. So just buying anything at the store is incredibly hard. And not only was it hard before for a lot of people, it's even harder now for most people. So we're just seeing an increase in need overall. We've collected and distributed over the last year about 70 million pounds of donated food.
Wow.
So it's insane. The food bank operates with a couple of different models as far as our funding. So majority of our food is donated. So about 55% of our food comes from donations. So that's just individuals that are coming in to bring food. But it's also, we have a lot of retail partnerships. So we work with grocery stores and some restaurants are able to donate food that otherwise would go to waste. The other 45%-ish is government programs. And so we get funding from the state and the national government to purchase food as well. And so that's about 25%.
Wow.
And then the rest is actually purchased food. And purchased food is our biggest expense at the food bank. So especially now more than ever.
And what do you mean when you say, I mean, besides the fact that you're purchasing it, but like, that purchased food, is that to fill a need that didn't get filled, through those other avenues? Or is that special food that you can't get from somewhere else? Or
it's both. It can be anything. It can be purchased for a specific need or just overall need in general. So one thing that we've been trying to do over the last couple of years is expand our culturally diverse food options. We've hired on a couple of new food sourcing specialists that can help us do that and work in some more partnerships to get more donated items, but also purchasing and having the ability. We just started offering more like halal products, which we weren't able to do before. And so that's kind of a big impact and change because we've been seeing a lot of refugees coming from across the country. And so having diverse food options is really important. Yeah. So I don't know. I could talk all day.
No, I love it. I love it. So, the goal of my podcast is to really provide food for thought. And sometimes that's just interviewing chefs or, just kind of like shooting the breeze with other foodies or whatever. But I think that we really can't have this conversation about food without talking about it from the other perspective, right? About the lack of food resources in Texas and then in our country specifically, right? And so I feel like the North Texas Food Bank does such important work, and I just want to highlight it and get it out there. And then I'll have some listeners that aren't in Texas either. And so kind of the goal is just to create that dialogue, right? And to really highlight the need and just get people, it truly is food for thought, right? Just get people thinking about how they can contribute. So the normal person, if we're not talking about a restaurant entity or charitable partnership, what can the normal person do to support?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way is to volunteer. So you can go on our website, you can volunteer or donate. So checking our website, there's a couple of different ways. You can either donate to us or you can volunteer with us. The other way, you can actually volunteer with our partners. Some of our partners post opportunities. And so what's really cool about the food bank is when it was originally started, it was launched by 4 women that literally just saw a need for hunger, hunger relief. And so these 4 women started working out of a distribution center and created a network of people that they work with. And the food bank works with over 400 feeding partners now so we service about 10,000 square miles across North Texas. So it's 13 counties and 400 different partners in throughout that area. And they're all different. So some of them are schools with our Food for Kids program. Some of them do senior programs. Some of them are just organizations trying to fill a need, and maybe food isn't their sole purpose, but they provide food to hungry neighbors. So you can volunteer at like one of the local partners that are closer to you, which is really nice to not have to drive as far. I know with Dallas, there's a lot of traffic.
Right.
So
Right.
that's another way. And then just talking about the food bank, like in general, overall word of mouth is really popular for people to learn more about us.
Right.
Which is why I'm here today.
Right. Just raising awareness, right? I think it's easy I'm a native of Dallas, and I think it's easy you can stay in a place your entire life and perhaps not see the forest for the trees. So it's kind of hard to realize how immediate the need is unless you're kind of intimately involved with it. So last year I began giving monthly to the North Texas Food Bank, and it's just something small that doesn't, I don't even notice it coming out of my bank account really, but I know that it's doing a lot of good, right? And it was just a decision that I made. There was a table outside of a Walmart one day. I was buying groceries, and they were like, "Hey, would you like to donate?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And honestly, until I saw it in my bank account a couple of months later, like I kind of forgot that I had signed up. But then I signed up for the newsletters, which was really neat. So it's just kind of like good to see what kind of impact you could make. And it's not really necessarily a pat on the back or anything else. I always know that there's so much more that I could be doing, but every journey starts with one small step, right? And so it's kind of the first step is just being involved, right?
And you can imagine, like, I would say about 50% of our funds that are donated come from individuals like that. And
Wow.
Not everyone can give, a $50,000 or more check. Like,
Of course.
we do have those larger donors, but they're one-off situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our funds actually come from those smaller, like, I can't really give a lot, but I can give when I can, donations. So we really do heavily rely on people like that. And it's so appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, everybody's money is obviously a commodity, right? But their time is also. So I think if you can't give one, you can definitely find a way to give another. I want to talk about the specific need in Dallas. There's a term that gets bandied around a lot, and it's food desert. I was wondering if you could speak to that just a little bit, just in case the listeners don't understand what that means.
Yeah. A food desert is basically just an area where there's no opportunities or access to food, general healthy food options, more specifically, and especially in Dallas. There's a lot of pockets of areas that you probably have driven through and never even knew that it was a food desert.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that the food bank has done in the past is we started doing mobile distributions, and recently have been partnering with other organizations to continue doing these mobile distributions. But we will load up trucks and drive to specific locations and hand out food at those locations. And so this got a lot of publicity during COVID because there were these huge drive-through mobile distributions happening in Fair Park area. And Fair Park there are pockets of Fair Park that are food deserts.
Wow.
So it's crazy to think about it. But our area specifically is the 5th highest of food insecure individuals.
Wow.
Which is, sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but it was a mouthful for me.
No, you're fine.
And it's the 4th highest for children, which is insane to think about. Like 1 in 8 people in this area is facing food insecurity, and 1 in 5 kids is facing food insecurity just in the specific area of North Texas.
Wow.
It's insane. A lot of issues are in different pockets of like rural areas of Dallas. And then we have a lot of mobile areas in the rural counties that we serve as well. So it's something that you don't really notice on a day-to-day basis, but the food insecurity rate in Texas is currently almost 13%. So just for North Texas, it's something that I never would have thought about because you don't really notice it living your day-to-day life.
Do you have any idea how that compares to other states?
Yes. For Texas, we're the 3rd, I believe. So it's funny because the Houston Food Bank and the North Texas Food Bank are in the top 5 largest food banks that work with Feeding America, which is our parent. So we're the 2 largest food providers in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Houston is the 1st, and then we're the 2nd. Lots of food insecurity across just the area of North Texas that we serve, it's about 700,000 people that are food insecure.
It's insane to think about, because a lot of people perhaps that don't live in Texas or have never lived in Dallas and or Houston would consider those like very large cosmopolitan, like very well-off areas, especially if you're talking about like cost of living and all the other resources that are available. So it's insane to think about in this day and age, right, that people are still facing food insecurity. It kind of just seems like something we should have figured out by now.
You would think, but just to really quick touch on like I know there's some different verbiage like food desert, food insecurity. Like
sure,
you can see food insecurity in anyone. So someone that's food insecure, you may not know. Like I don't know your situation, right? You could be food insecure based off of, you know, your income, your day-to-day livelihood, and your costs. So you could work with someone on a regular basis and have no idea that they're a food insecure individual. That basically just means that they don't have the livelihood to be able to put food on the table for them or their family. So something that we actually implemented here at the food bank is we created our own kind of NTFB family pantry. We'll put donated food items and things and have members and employees of the food bank that can come through and grab food if they need it. That's just how passionate our team is and how much we believe that like nobody should be hungry.
So you're really taking care of your team first from the inside out.
Yeah. And it really isn't up to us, regardless of like if they're food insecure, right? So you could be making a livable wage, but you know, if you get into a car accident or your mom has hospital bills and you have to help pay for them, like we don't know what your background or your story is or why you're food insecure. But if you need food, you need food. So that's really the sole purpose of why we're here.
I love that. That's just amazing. I absolutely love the fact that you can take this issue that's widespread. You've just given us these statistics that I certainly didn't know about before. You can take this issue and you can strip all of the opinions away from it, all of the politics away from it, and you can say, hey, we've recognized a need and now we're doing what we need to meet this need, which I think is one of the greatest things about living in community with one another, right? Just taking care of one another.
That's exactly it. It's hard sometimes because there really is a stigma around like who deserves free food, but it's not up to us to decide that, you know? Like you could see someone driving through the food distribution line in a G-Wagon and you might be like, oh, why are they driving through? They have a G-Wagon. Like, but it's not up to us to decide. That person's reality is their specific situation. If they're food insecure, they need it. And there's no reason for them to be hungry when we have the resources to help them. So
absolutely.
So that's kind of something that we've really been working on in the last, I would say, few years, is trying to help relieve that stigma and making sure that really everyone knows that there's no reason to be hungry.
You're absolutely right. As a chef, it's one of my great joys to eat. I love to eat. That's probably 80% of why I'm a chef, but I also love to share food with other people. And sometimes it just takes different mechanisms, right? It's not as much, it's not as easy as somebody coming into a restaurant and paying for it and it going on the plate. It's just not that simple, right? And you never know what somebody else is facing. So I think, the best policy is to always be kind.
Yeah.
Always be kind.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
All right. So if somebody does not live in Texas, how do you think they can help? Are there any other state like food banks that you partner with, or are there any resources that you could point people to, maybe how they can help specifically in their areas?
Yeah. Well, one really cool thing is this year, Forbes actually released a top 100 nonprofits list. And our food bank was number 87, which is really awesome for us. But the top organization listed was Feeding America. And Feeding America is our parent organization. And they serve food banks just like us all over the nation. Amazing. So anyone that is not local to Texas can go to the Feeding America website and they can look up their state, their county, and they can actually read food insecurity statistics through the Feeding America website. So you can see how many neighbors in your area are facing food insecurity. And then they can also see different organizations and food banks in that area that they can work with, donate to, and volunteer with.
Awesome.
Step one would probably just be going to the Feeding America website.
Great. Well, I'm going to link to both the Feeding America website and that Forbes Top 100 list in the episode notes for this episode, and it'll be on the website, www.foodforthoughtcast.com, as soon as this episode goes live. And Kennedy, what should we know about you?
About me specifically? Oh, gosh. I'm a very selfless person. I don't really like talking about myself. I don't know what to say.
That's okay. So what's your relationship with food like before you found this job? Has it always kind of been like in your wheelhouse to be around food or near food, or what did you do before you worked for the North Texas Food Bank?
I guess my relationship with food, I just like food. Like,
sure,
who doesn't like food?
Who doesn't?
But I always had periods in my life on and off that I worked in either service industry or food industry up until really college. And then post-college, I did again, always coming back to like the nonprofit side. And so I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but I really feel like coming to the food bank was kind of like the perfect mesh for me, because it was a combination of serving the community that I love and care so much about, on top of working around food. Working at the food bank, I've really come to learn a lot more about different food ideas. And honestly, we talk about a lot of different nutritional impacts, and we have a whole nutrition team at the food bank.
That's amazing.
They've actually taught me so much. We have a small garden out here that they do volunteer shifts. You can come and learn about, different types of plants and climates and soils and how to grow your own produce. But also to that point, it goes from dirt to plate, that from the ground to your mouth. We'll take those products that grow in the garden and we'll say, here's how you can put this into a meal. Here's a recipe for you to learn how to, really make your own food. And I think that since working here, I've just started to develop just honestly a more noticeable palate when it comes to
that's
what
incredible.
I'm trying to eat.
Wow. That's great.
We talk about this, it's called My Plate, and it's basically, servings based off of what you should eat as a nutritional impact. So it's like protein, certain amount of protein, certain amount of veggies and fruits and things like that. So I'm just a lot more cognizant of that too. So yeah, it's been a really great learning experience for me, not only just in my professional development, but in my personal development too.
That's amazing. So you're literally taking the concept farm to table, or as you said, dirt to plate, and it's immediately right impacting you as an individual, which is how it all starts, right? It just takes one person to kind of start a movement, and I think that's incredible. That is so amazing.
Did I just coin the dirt to plate?
Yeah, maybe you just coined a new phrase. I totally dig it because I think it'll be way less overplayed than farm to table is. So
it really is. I mean, it's cool. And our nutrition team does a lot more than that. Like, they go out to different sites and not only educate our partner organizations that we work with, but they talk to kids, they talk to seniors, they really showcase products. So if one of our partners is having a hard time pushing something specifically off their shelves, I think the other day it was quinoa, we can showcase different recipes or provide them with recipes printed off, and people can take those recipes with them and learn how to utilize the resource. So
right. And that's an interesting point that you bring up, is the unusual items that get donated or purchased, right? Or maybe you have a surplus of a certain item, but maybe those items don't really fit the demographic that you're trying to impact.
Yeah.
And I've certainly done that in the past. If somebody's running a canned food drive, they're going to get 13 cans of corn from me. And honestly, just because somebody has food insecurity doesn't mean that they don't deserve a variety of items on their plate and something more than just like, this is a random can of tuna I found in the back of my pantry, or here's 13 cans of green beans, right? So what are the best items you think, or maybe the most needed items that people can donate to their local their local food banks?
I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I actually looked before. So our website, we update, our food sourcing team updates like our most needed items.
That's awesome.
And in the month of September, we actually do what's called our peanut butter drive, and we get all of our counties involved. Anyone who wants to be involved can be involved, but we get our whole service area involved and do a collection of peanut butter, strictly peanut butter. And it's a great source of protein for kids, mostly because that's really a lot of what they eat.
Sure.
In the past month, we got almost 350 pounds of peanut butter.
Good Lord.
This last September. Yeah. So that's been, I mean, if anyone who is listening ever goes to the fair, we're usually at the fair during that time period. We'll either collect peanut butter or we'll collect canned goods, and you can get discounted tickets for the fair. So that's another way to get involved.
That's
if you
awesome.
Ever go to the fair. A lot of people
awesome.
do that. So back to your question. Peanut butter is one really big one. Canned proteins, so like canned tuna or canned chicken, they're just shelf-stable proteins that can be widely used. We also are desperate for milk, eggs, and really any kind of produce, but we don't take a lot of those items from individuals who donate. We typically have to source those ourselves or get them donated from like our larger retailers, because there's a lot of restrictions behind what kind of products we can accept.
Yeah, totally. Because they're perishable and you don't know how they've been stored. And I mean, I think it's completely reasonable, right? Like, you're wanting to help people without potentially hurting them from a food safety standpoint. So I totally understand that. And what are the items? What are the items that are not helpful? Do you have any crazy one-off examples? The things that people donate?
Anything that's expired, I guess.
Certainly.
We get a lot of like rice and pasta, and those are really great. But we do get a lot of rice or canned beans.
Sure.
Those are always helpful. So we're never going to turn down any food. It's really just anything that's like expired. We can't really use anything expired.
Of course.
If you I want a can of something and it's expired, I'm going to throw it away.
You're going to throw it out. Yeah, I hear that. I want to challenge my listeners. When you're donating to a food bank, you can think of yourself as somebody else's chef. So if you're going to donate rice, you really need to donate something that's going to go with it. If you're going to donate pasta, maybe donate some sauce. Because nobody needs one thing without the other. It's just like if you're doing your own grocery shopping, you're not going to buy things that don't go together. And I think our neighbors that are facing food insecurity deserve the same luxury.
I think that's great. I love that idea. It's funny that you mentioned that, because we also partner with HelloFresh, and HelloFresh gives us their kits, but most of the time we get their kits without the proteins. So we pair it ourselves with proteins that are catered to specific organizations or people based off of whatever their culture is. Because, some people don't eat red meat, some people don't eat pork. And so being conscious of that. But it is funny to think about, like, if you're donating like a big box of pasta or corn, like, what is that going to go with?
Sure. And like you said, you're not going to turn down any donation as long as it's not expired and it's a food item, because that's the first step, right? Is making the donation. And that's an amazing thing for anybody to do. However, I would just challenge everybody, let's take it one step further, be really, considerate and intentional with what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, any donation is going to really help us, because I guess, as they're saying, the pandemic is going away. A lot of our government funding is actually going away. And so we're spending more every year on purchased food, because we see it kind of like this. So the need is going up and our funding is here going up as well. With the government funding going down, that basically means we have to supplement that somehow, whether that's with donated food or by spending more money on food, which is already our biggest expense. Really, any donation is going to be helpful. But like you said, like anything that you bring, like if you can pair it with something, it's just going to make our lives easier.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to make it easier for you at the food bank, right? From a sorting perspective or from a resource perspective. And then eventually the recipient, like, it's going to help them out too. It's going to put them set them up for more success. Kennedy, where can people find you online?
I'm on pretty much everything. For the food bank, we have Instagram, which is at North Texas Food Bank. Facebook is also North Texas Food Bank. Our Twitter is at NTFB, which is the abbreviated version, North Texas Food Bank, so NTFB. Our website is ntfb.org, so everything that you need to know about us would be on there. For me, I'm on pretty much all of those platforms as well. For the food bank, I would probably start with the website.
Excellent. Kennedy, one last thing. I just have a little lightning round for you. What's your favorite childhood food memory?
Probably my mom burning macaroni and cheese.
The one from the box or an actual recipe?
Make. Yeah, the one from the box. It's like the easiest thing that you could ever make. And my mom, she wasn't really a chef. So that just sticks out in my mind a lot. But my passion and my love for food definitely came from my dad.
Amazing.
Lots of those at-home recipes and things that I really remember about cooking and things like that really came from my dad.
That's awesome. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap for today. Until the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast, make good food, eat good food, share it, and be kind to one another.
Thanks so much for listening today. You are part of what makes us special, and we are so glad you joined us. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. Just like food, delicious podcasts are better when you share them with others. Come back for seconds wherever podcasts are served, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Food for Thoughtcast or at www.foodforthoughtcast.com, where you can link to all podcast players, or you can send us an email at foodforthoughtcmc@gmail.com.